Namaste, welcome back to AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate Exam Question Analysis, and I think this is part 7. We have finished 50 questions so far, and I assume that you already watched all the 6. If you haven't, please go ahead and watch them, because the first 6 are the latest questions that appeared in the exam recently. So if you missed them, you need to go back, because the last, I think 50 questions are from the last 1 or 2 months, which would be, it will include August, July, and maybe some parts of June as well. So if you haven't watched them, go ahead and watch them. And those 50 questions pretty much cover, whatever we are going to cover later on. But when I say cover, it's not going to the same question. But since we analyzed not only the right options, we also analyzed the wrong options. And we have spoken about tips, tricks, keywords. Whenever you see a keyword in the question, which answer to pick blindly, and etc. We won't repeat that again, right? So from this point onwards, I expect you guys to, whenever I point out a keyword, I expect you to answer or pick the correct answer from the options. So for that reason, go back, watch all the 6 videos from the beginning, and then come back to this. Okay, otherwise you will be missing a lot. That being said, let's start this video. Okay, we are on question number 51. A company needs to integrate with a third-party data feed. The data feed sends a webhook to notify an external service when new data is ready for consumption. A developer wrote an AWS Lambda function to retrieve data when the company receives a webhook callback. The developer must make the Lambda function available for the third party to call. Which solution will meet these requirements with the most operational efficiency? All right. So whenever you see keywords like AWS Lambda and the webhook, there is only one option that is there to pick, which is create a function URL for the Lambda function, because this is a feature of Lambda function where you can create a function URL. Then you provide that Lambda function URL to the third party for the webhook so that it can do send the data using that. Okay, so looking at the other option, deploy an application load balancer in front of Lambda function, provide the ALB URL to the third party for the webhook. Doesn't work that way. Load balancing happens on EC2 machines and etc., not on a Lambda function. This feature is not available. Create an SNS topic, attach the topic to the Lambda function, provide the host name of the SNS topic to the third party of the webhook. No. Again, I don't have to go through this, because that the only feature that for the webhook and the calling the AWS function is available through the functional URL. Okay, so whenever you see that, just go for that. If you want me to open the corresponding link, let me do that. So you can go through this one, creating a GitHub webhook and etc., and receiving events using Lambda function URL. This is the link in the under the event branch. You will see under inbound webhooks use Lambda function URLs. FURLs are Lambda function URLs and etc. So I won't spend much time here, but you can do that. Question number 52. A company has an online gaming application that has TCP and UDP multiplayer gaming capabilities. The company uses Amazon Route 53 to point the application traffic to multiple network load balancers in different AWS regions. The company needs to improve application performance and decrease latency for the online game in preparation for user growth. Which solution will meet these requirements? Okay, so again, another tip here, whenever you see TCP, UDP, gaming, decrease latency, then you can blindly go for accelerator, global accelerator with NLBs. There is nothing else that does support that, so let's go and pick that. CloudFront distribution, even though it improves application performance latency it doesn't support TCP and UDP. So remember that there are only two things that can, CloudFront and accelerator, but CloudFront doesn't do TCP and UDP, so you can cross that out. And you have only one option where you will have C, global accelerator in front of NLP. So let's go ahead and pick that. Okay, so this is the answer. Anytime you see TCP, UDP, gaming, decrease latency, go with global accelerator in front of NLPs. Okay, so let me cross the remaining out. A company is migrating its workloads to AWS. The company has transactional and sensitive data in its databases. The company wants to use AWS cloud solutions to increase security and reduce operational overhead for the databases. Which solution will meet these requirements? Increase security and reduce operational overhead. Okay, so that is the key point. Now let's look at it. Migrate the databases to Amazon EC2. Okay, so we can cancel this out without reading completely because it is asking for both security and reduce overhead. And whenever you see EC2s, cross them out if the question asks for operational overhead, because having EC2s or having databases on EC2 is a too much operational overhead, so cross that out. Then we have migrate the data to S3, use Amazon Macie for data protection and security and protection. Okay, so while you already know that Macie provides advanced security features for data in S3, it may not be directly applicable, or it are used to optimize databases, especially for transaction and sensitive data. Okay, so this is out of picture. Okay, so then we have both of them, they use RDS and RDS, but here it's saying use Amazon Cloud Logs for data security and protection. Okay, here yes, logs you can, but this you cannot use for data security and protection. Maybe if there is something happens, it will log it, but not for data security and protection. It can't do much. This is a logging service. It doesn't do any protection or secure. So the answer is RDS, configure encryption at rest, which will decrease the operational overhead because RDS is a fully managed database, and by encrypting data at rest you have the full security of the transactional and sensitive data. Question number 54. A data analytics company wants to migrate its batch processing system to AWS. The company receives thousands of small files periodically during the day through FTP. Okay. An on-premises batch job processes the data files overnight. However, the batch job takes hours to finish running. The company wants the AWS solution to process incoming data as soon as possible with minimal changes to the FTP clients that send the files. So they don't want to change the FTPing the file, they want to keep it as is. The solution must delete the incoming data files after the files have been processed successfully. Processing for each file needs to take 3 to 8 minutes. Okay, there are so many files that will take hours, but each file should only take 3 to 8 minutes. Which solution will meet this requirement most operationally efficient way? So I already told you, whenever you see operationally efficient way, they are just talking about either fully managed or serverless. Let's look at the options. Since they don't want to change changes to the FTP clients that send the files, then which means we want an equivalent service in the AWS. And you already know there is only one service where you can FTP the files, which is AWS Transfer. So that will eliminate these two options immediately. Okay, because they are talking about spinning an FTP server. Okay, whereas C and D both use AWS Transfer family, which is just whatever a service that you use to FTP the files. Okay, then both this one it FTPs to store incoming files on EBS, and this one stores it on S3. Okay, so let's entertain both the options. And then the next option would be configure a job queue in AWS Batch. here it says AWS Lambda function. So I told you, whenever it talks about most operationally efficient way, go for serverless. Okay, I mean even batch is kind of serverless, and Lambda function is. So let me go and search for AWS batch, because till now I think we didn't see AWS batch at all. So let's search that for the documentation. Let's see if we can find it in here. Maybe not. Okay, this is used to run batch processing, ML model training and analysis at any scale. Okay, you can run hundreds of thousands of batch and machine learning complete jobs without installing software. So right, so this is kind of serverless. Okay, so both are serverless. Lambda is serverless and this is serverless as well. Okay, then we have S3 event notification when each file arrives to invoke the job in AWS batch. So whenever you put a file on S3, then that event notification to invoke the job in AWS batch, then delete it. Okay, so here it's kind of similar, but if you look at this, do you want to really use each file processing using batch? Because file takes only 3 to 8 minutes, whereas when you use AWS batch, it's kind of, you will use this to run processes that run for hours, etc. Okay, so these are not this, at least the 3 to 8 minutes keyword does suggest that don't use batch, use Lambda instead, because as you know, you use Lambda for any processing that takes less than 15 minutes. Okay, so you will use Lambda to not just process the files, also delete the files. Okay, because here it is not telling you how to delete the files after the job has processed the files. Okay, so maybe let's assume that that particular job contains the logic to do that as well, AWS batch. But again, AWS batch, as I mentioned, it's not used for something that will finish in minutes. So keywords, doesn't want to change FTP clients is transfer family. Then process incoming data files as soon as possible means S3 events, right? That's the only way you can process files as soon as they arrive. Then processing for each file takes 3 to 8 minutes. That is the keyword for Lambda. Then delete the files. Again, that is keyword for Lambda function as well. 55. A company has a regional subscription based streaming service that runs in a single AWS region. Think of it as like Netflix. The architecture consists of web servers and application servers on Amazon EC2 instances. The EC2 instances are in auto-scaling groups behind Elastic Load Balancer. So this is a typical architecture, right? Outside user requests, then you have ALB, then you have auto-scaling, then you have your EC2s. But only in one region. Maybe multiple availability zones, but still one region. The architecture includes an Amazon Aurora global database cluster that extends across multiple availability zones. Okay, the company wants to expand globally and to ensure that its application has minimal downtime. Which solution will provide most fault tolerance? Okay, most fault tolerance means in return they are saying highly available, etc. Okay, first of all, when you want highly availability is within a region, whereas disaster recovery and fault tolerance span around regions. So there is a reason why they said single region. So whenever they are talking about fault tolerance, so you need to increase all your services to another region. So let's see which one that is pointing to. So I think technically everything is pointing to a second tier. Okay, but here they are talking about extending the auto scaling groups for the web tier and the application tier to deploy instances in availability zones in a second region. Okay, technically you cannot do that. You cannot extend auto scaling. You cannot point auto scaling groups one to one region, another to another region. So you can cross this out. Okay, so you can cross that out. And then let's look at option B and C. Deploy to a second region, because all B, C, and D have the same option. And here they are talking about add a Aurora PostgreSQL cross region. Here add an Aurora PostgreSQL database in the second region. Cross this out immediately because they already said they are using Aurora Global Database Cluster. Okay, so they're talking about minimal downtime. So there is no way that you can add another database and have it configured to with the Aurora Global Database. Okay, so that leaves us with option D. Okay, so it's as simple as that. You can eliminate things like that. Okay, you don't have to like, oh my god, which option should I go with, whether it is, even if you don't know the answer, sometimes you can use the elimination process. Okay, so let's look at the option D. Deploy the web application tier in second region, which is fine, which is good, right? Because again, as we said, the EC2 machines are bound to whenever you deploy it, you will deploy it to a security group, subnet, and the subnet is linked to an availability zone. Okay, then use an Amazon Aurora global database to deploy the database in the primary region and the secondary region, which is what they want to do. They want to extend across multiple availability zones. They already have it, but since they're talking about minimal downtime, we need to use the existing service and expand it somehow. And then use Amazon Route 53 health checks with a failover routing policy to secondary region, promote the secondary to primary as needed, which is good. Okay, pretty much I think all the options are talking about using Route 53 to do that. So answer is D. 56. A solutions architect is reviewing the resilience of an application. The solutions architect notices that a database administrator recently failed over the application's Aurora PostgreSQL database writer instance as part of a scaling exercise. The failover resulted in 3 minutes of downtime. Which solution will reduce the downtime for scaling exercises with the least operational overhead? Again, whenever they say least operational overhead, either go with serverless or use whatever services you have. Don't add a new service. Okay. That being said, they are talking about the failover, right? They are talking about reducing the downtime for scaling exercises. Whenever something scales, you don't want to take too long for that to scale. Okay, so what are the options to reduce the downtime during whatever operation is happening behind the scenes? Okay, let's check the options. We have create more read replicas in the cluster to handle the load during failover. Okay, so whenever you are failing over and having this, again, creating more read replicas out of the cluster, it read works fine, but nowhere it is saying that it is about the reading. If you look at this, they are talking about the writer instance. Okay, so by adding reading is not going to solve the problem, because this is only does the reading, but here they are talking about the writer instance. So you can cross this out. And then they are talking about set up a secondary AWS PostgreSQL cluster in the same AWS region. Again, whenever you are talking about failover, it has to be in a different region. And even if you want to do this up, it's too much operational overhead. Cross that out. And then we have create an elastic cache. This is out of syllabus because we are talking about database. It's not a relational database, and here we are talking about a completely different database, NoSQL database, and configuring that and sending data to that is not at all recommended. So, and it increases operational overhead. The best solution is to use RDS proxy. Okay, so one of the benefits of Amazon RDS proxy is that it can improve application recovery time after database fails over. So that's about Amazon RDS proxy, which is the answer for our 56th question. 57. A company wants to add its existing AWS usage cost to its operational cost dashboard. A solutions architect needs to recommend a solution that will give the company access to its usage cost programmatically. The company must be able to access cost data for the current year and forecast cost for the next 12 months. Which solution will meet with least operational overhead? Okay, so this is about costing, and we spoke about costing, and if you remember, if you want to access cost data for current year and forecast, there is only one tool that does it, which is the Cost Explorer. So that will eliminate this has Cost Explorer. So let's eliminate this. Budgets don't forecast. Budgets we already know. You can create alerts for saying different budgets. If your account reaches more than $10, you can send an alert. It just creates alerts. It doesn't limit the usage to be $10, and it doesn't stop automatically. Okay, so you can eliminate budgets. Then we have both the places. We have Cost Explorer. Okay, so here it is talking about using Cost Explorer API with pagination. Here it is talking about using downloadable AWS Cost Explorer report.csv. Okay, so if you look at this, least operational overhead, okay, they want to give it programmatically. Okay, so whenever it talks about programmatically, having API access with pagination makes sense. Why? Because you can access this access data from AWS Cost Explorer programmatically using Cost Explorer API. Okay, so each paginated API request incurs a charge of about 1 cent. So, and you can't disable Explorer, Cost Explorer after you enable it. So remember that. But this is the only way that you can have access to Cost Explorer programmatically. So let's cross this out. 58. A company wants to analyze and troubleshoot access denied errors and unauthorized errors that are related to IAM permissions. The company has AWS CloudTrail turned on. Which solution will meet the requirements with the least effort? So the requirement is least effort, but what do they want? They want to troubleshoot access denied errors and unauthorized errors. So how do you want to do that? Okay, whenever they are talking about analyzing something logs or anything like that, go with Athena. Okay, because they are saying least effort. Here if you go with Glue, you need to write a Glue job either in Python or any other language you want. If you are talking about Bash, again you have to write your own job. And QuickSight is a reporting tool. So if they are just talking about dashboarding or visualize and etc., you can go with QuickSight. But here it's talking about analyzing and troubleshooting. Then Athena is your answer, because Athena you don't have to create any new Glue jobs or anything. Just write your queries to identify the errors, and that's it. You are good to go. 59. A company runs a microservice-based serverless application. The application must be able to retrieve data from multiple Amazon DynamoDB tables. A solutions architect needs to give the application the ability to retrieve the data with no impact on the baseline performance of the application. Most operationally efficient way with no impact on the baseline performance of the application. Okay. So then the application need to retrieve the data from DynamoDB without any baseline performance. Okay, so that is the question. Okay, let's look at the options, shall we? I think we have seen about AWS App Sync. I don't think it has anything to do with this, but let us go back and let us learn about AWS App Sync. Okay, so you can see it is a build data driven. It connects apps to data and events with secure serverless performance graph query language and PubSub APIs, which has nothing to do with whatever we want to achieve here. So you can cross that out. And then you have edge optimized Amazon API gateway with AWS Lambda functions. Okay, so we are not talking about accessing anything through any API or anything like that here. So there is no such requirement of introducing API gateway with AWS Lambda functions. So we can cross that out. And then you have Athena federated query with a DynamoDB connector. If you have data and sources other than S3, you can use Athena federated query to query the data in a place or build pipelines that extract data from multiple sources and store them in S3. With federated query, you can run SQL queries across data stored in that. Athena uses data source connectors that run on AWS Lambda federated queries and whatnot. Okay, so it is coming back to Lambda functions again. Here you are planning to use API gateway, here you are planning to, but how is that going to have no impact on the baseline performance on the application? It's not possible. The only way you can do it is use AWS CloudFront with Lambda using something called edge functions. Okay, so by using this, you can benefit from the distributed CDN network. Okay, content delivery network, which will reduce the load on DynamoDB and it will retrieve data with low latency. The use of caching also helps to minimize the impact on baseline performance and it will improve the overall efficiency of data retrieval in your application. Okay, even though these two use the same, but by using edge functions is different than Lambda functions. Okay, so because these Lambda functions run on the edge locations, because you can see there are multiple DynamoDBs sitting in different regions and etc. So edge locations, when you do that, what it will do is it will go and run wherever your DynamoDB is sitting and execute it, which will have no impact on the baseline performance. Question number 60. A company runs container applications by using Amazon Elastic Kubernetes service. The company's workload is not consistent throughout the day. The company wants Amazon EKS to scale in and out according to the workload. Which combination of steps will meet these requirements? Least operational overhead. Again, least operational overhead means don't introduce anything new. Okay, go with whatever you already have. Okay, since they have EKS, do modifications to EKS and make it to work. That's what operational overhead means. Okay, so here we are talking about app mesh to observe network activity. Again, let's not introduce anything new. They are talking about use Amazon API gateway and connect it to same thing. Don't add anything new. Okay, so then we are left with 3 here. Okay, so you can see use Kubernetes metric server to activate horizontal pod auto scaling. Okay, so this is a feature that you already have built into EKS. So let's use that instead of the external thing. Again, I just told you operational overhead means don't try to introduce anything new tool. Instead, try to use the features available in the current tool. Okay, which is that this will address the scale in and out. Then we have EKS autoscaler to manage the number of nodes in the cluster. Okay, so it will manage the same thing with just like our autoscaler, it does that. Okay, so the metrics will check the consistency, whether it is low, high, etc. Then accordingly it will work with autoscaler to scale in and scale out. Okay, so by combining autoscaler to manage the number of nodes in the cluster and enabling horizontal pod autoscaling with a Kubernetes metric server, you can achieve automatic scaling of your EKS clusters and container applications based on workload demand. This approach minimizes operational overhead. Will you agree with that? As it leverages built-in Kubernetes functionality and automation mechanism. So keyword is whenever you see least operational overhead, try to use the built-in functionality of the application that they are mentioning in the question. Question number 61. A retail company has several businesses. The IT team for each business manages its own AWS account. Each team account is a part of an organization in AWS organizations. Each team monitors its product inventory levels in an Amazon DynamoDB table in the team's own AWS account. the company is deploying a central inventory reporting application into a shared AWS account. Okay, till now everything is separate. Even the DynamoDB, each team has their own DynamoDB table, but now the company wants to deploy a central inventory reporting application into a shared AWS account. The application must be able to read items from all the team's DynamoDB tables. Okay, it's straightforward. Which authentication option will meet these requirements most securely? Okay, let's look at the options here. Okay, so we have integrate DynamoDB with secrets manager in the inventory applications account. Configure the application to use the correct secret from secrets manager to authenticate and read DynamoDB table. Schedule secret rotation for every 30 days. Okay, so what they are telling you here is use secrets manager, and then in the secrets manager have correct secret, I guess. Correct secret, I'm assuming it's talking about username password kind of thing. And then to authenticate, secrets manager doesn't authenticate anything, it just stores secrets. Okay, so what the framing of the question is not correct. Oh, okay, sorry, it is talking about using the secrets from secret manager to authenticate. Configure the application, whatever the application you are using, because they didn't mention what. Let's assume if the application is Lambda, then you will read the credentials from secret manager and then you will authenticate it to. Yeah, sure, that will work, but it is not a secure way. Actually, we don't even have to go through, because whenever they talk about most securely, always go for IAM roles, because IAM roles will provide a secure way to grant permissions to entities within AWS. Okay, so always remember to go with that. And by creating an IAM role in each business account named BU role with the necessary permissions to access the DynamoDB table. The access can be controlled at the IAM role level. And the cross account access, since here we are talking about cross account, right? Because each DynamoDB table is in a separate account, so we are talking about accessing these DynamoDB tables from cross account, because application is in a shared account A, where it has to go through account B, C, D and access the DynamoDB. So it's considered as cross account access. So when you have that situation, you will configure a trust policy in the BU role, because you cannot just have a role and say like, oh, I want to access cross. It doesn't work that way. You need to configure a trust policy in the BU role that trusts a specific role in the inventory application account, right? You will create roles. Remember that you will create BU roles, business unit roles, in each of the sub accounts. Then you will come to shared AWS account. Here you are going to trust the BU role from all these accounts. Okay, so in the application you will have the role app role. Then you establish a trust relationship between the two accounts, or like this and all the other three. So then they are talking about most securely, least privilege, right? Always remember, when they say most securely, they are talking about least privilege. You don't give complete access, you give least privilege access, because they are talking about only read. When you use this secrets to secret manager, I mean, they can give read access to that, but here we are talking about roles, right? In the role you can just mention by creating specific IAM role in each business unit and granting it only access only to be required by DynamoDB table, which means only read access. Now you can ensure that each team's table is accessed with the least privilege principle. Then you have a security token service as well. So the use of security token STS, which is called assume role API operation in the inventory application account, allows the application to assume the cross account role in each business account. Okay, so that all takes us to the option C. Why we went through all this is because it complicates when you have cross region access. Okay, so here it is talking about creating an IAM user, configure the application, use the correct IAM user, access ID secret. No, access ID secret IDs are never a secure way, so cancel that out. Then these guys are talking about secret certificate manager, which has nothing to do with authenticating and etc. So cross that out, then you will end up with option C. Whatever I explained till now is from here. Okay, so remember that cross region, you need to have the roles created in those specific accounts to be have that, you need to create the trust policy in the application account and add those roles in here, saying that you are trusting them and etc. Question number 62. A company is designing a new web application that will run on Amazon EC2 instances. The application will use Amazon DynamoDB for backend data storage. The application traffic will be unpredictable. Okay, we already know whenever it is unpredictable, you always go for on demand, no matter what it is. The company expects that the application read and write throughput to the database will be moderate to high. The company needs to scale in response to application traffic. Which DynamoDB table configuration will be most cost effectively? Okay, so I just said unpredictable means it's always on demand. So let's not go with this since it's provisioned read and write. Even this provisioned read write. Okay, then we are left with B and D, where we have both using on demand. Okay, but here it is talking about using standard table class. Here it is talking about using standard infrequent access. Okay, so whereas here it is talking about read and write throughput to the database to be moderate to high. So when you have something like that, obviously you want to go with infrequent access. Okay, so DynamoDB standard table class, it offers you, or it provides a balance between cost and performance. Okay, so remember that for the moderate to high. Okay, so you cannot go with this option. Instead you will go with standard. Okay, so let's reiterate it, right? With on-demand mode, DynamoDB automatically scales its capacity to handle the application's traffic, and DynamoDB standard table class, it will provide a balance between cost and performance. And by using on-demand mode, the company only pays for the actual read and write request made to the table rather than provisioning and paying for a fixed amount of capacity units in advance. Okay, so that I think covers whatever the question asked. Question number 63. A consulting company provides professional services to customers worldwide. The company provides solutions and tools for customers to expedite gathering and analyzing data on AWS. The company needs to centrally manage and deploy a common set of solutions and tools for customers to use for self-service purposes. Which solution will meet these requirements? Okay, so cloud formation template, we already know it is infrastructure as code service. This has nothing to do with centrally managing and deploying common set of solutions and tools. Create, let's talk about systems manager templates. Okay, I don't know if we ever saw systems manager template. Do we even have such thing? Systems manage AWS system manager. Okay, looks like system manager. Let's look at its features, because I have never seen anything like systems manager template. I don't see it. Template, let's see. What is this? Post analysis? No, it's incident manager, not that application. Yeah, so there is no such thing as systems manager template, so we can cross that out. And then we have config items for no. AWS config is something that you use where you create rules for compliance reasons. So we are left with AWS service catalog products for the customers. Okay, so this will let you centrally manage your cloud resources to achieve governance at scale of your infrastructure as code templates. Okay, written in CloudFormation or Terraform. With service catalog, you can meet your compliance requirements while making sure your customers can quickly deploy the cloud resources they need. So if you look at that you can see it. You can create, share, organize, govern IAC templates, which is infrastructure as code using CloudFormation. Okay, so you can take a look at that here. You will have CloudFormation templates or Terraform configurations, then you will use to organize, control your curated catalog of AWS products, etc. So that's about question number 63. It's talking about centrally managing deploy. Okay, that differs between A and B difference. You cannot centrally manage CloudFormation using CloudFormation. Question number 64. An application uses an Amazon RDS MySQL DB instance. The RDS database is becoming low on disk space. A solutions architect wants to increase the disk space without downtime. Which solution meets with least amount of effort? Okay, it's just talking about scaling the disk space. There is nothing much to it because they already have everything on RDS and etc. Okay, so just like if you want to increase the disk space, not disk space, but if you want to have spin different machine based on the load, what would you do? You will use auto scaling. Similarly, RDS has enabling storage auto scaling, which does the same thing. Whenever your disk space is low, whenever depending on whatever rules you created, whenever it meets that, then it will auto scale it without having any downtime. So that is your answer. Increasing instance size does have a downtime, and again it's talking about just the disk, not about the compute power as well, because when you do that, that's what happens. Then change the RDS database instance storage type to provisioned IOPS. Again, changing any type causes effort. There is effort to it. When you can automatically scale it without doing or having downtime, why would you go with any of that? Backup the RDS. Okay, this is completely out of syllabus, or it takes too much time to do that, and there is too much downtime as well. Okay, so just to use auto scaling, it continuously monitors actual storage consumption and scales capacity up automatically when actual utilization approaches provisioned storage capacity. It works with auto scaling, works with new and existing database instances. You can enable auto scaling with just a few clicks in the console. There is no additional cost for RDS storage auto scaling. You pay only for the RDS resources needed to run your applications, right? Question number 65. Okay, so this will be the last question in this video, and if you have not already subscribed to this channel, please go ahead and do it, and do like the videos and comment. That is the only way that I would know that you are actually liking these videos, which will tell me to make these videos frequently. If I don't see that many views or likes or subscriptions, then I would not know. I would assume that you guys are doesn't find this useful at all. Then I don't have to spend my time making these videos, right? So if you really want these videos to be produced either 2 days once or every day, then do subscribe, like and comment. That is one way to tell me that you guys are interested and want me to make these videos. Okay, question number 65. A company wants to send all AWS systems manager session manager logs to an Amazon S3 bucket for archival purposes. Which solution will meet this requirement with most operational efficiency? Okay, so in order to do that, you need to know systems manager. Otherwise, without knowing, you won't be able to pick. Let's try to eliminate this. Okay, install Amazon CloudWatch agent. Okay, we can do that. Push all logs to a CloudWatch log group. Export the logs to S3 bucket from the group for archival purposes. Doable. But remember, whenever we talk about most operational efficiency, operational overhead, what are we supposed to do? Use the features that are or the functionality that is available within the tool that the question is asking. Okay, which is systems manager, and the only option or two options that are talking about is A and C.
So you can eliminate B and D. But the thing is, how do we know that if this exists or not? So that's why I said you need to know this because B is doable without any problem. I think subscription that pushes up any incoming log events to Kinesis data, even this is doable as well, but this is like going round and round. Nowhere it says like you need to process or send these logs in real time, etc. So you don't need D. And B, let's cross it out because it's not operationally efficient. Then it's going to create a systems manager document. Create a system manager to upload all server logs to a central S3 bucket. Use Event Bridge to run the systems manager document against all servers that are in the account daily. Again, this is not operationally efficient way at all. So the operation efficient is by simply enabling S3 logging. So what it does, it will send the data, session data to S3 automatically. But you need to know that such option exists. Okay. So for 65, the answer is yes. Just the keyword is most operational efficiency. Whenever you see that, try to evaluate the answers or options in such a way that it's the features of already existing tool in the question. Okay. Alright, that being said, this is the last question in this video. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. My inspiration comes from you guys watching these videos. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Have a great day and see you in the next one.